In this class we want to talk about the very fundamentals of action learning. Now you'll notice from the bottom right hand corner of the slide that in fact there are only 7 slides in this particular class, which probably makes it one of the shortest classes on the whole course. But nonetheless, it's worthwhile spending time in studying this material and mastering it, because this will give the precise relationship between the variables in action learning. Now that sounds a little technical, but it just simply gathers up what action learning is about and formulates them in an easy way to remember. So let's look at it. We'll start with, or we will deal with, I should say, in this particular class, with the action learning equation. Now it sounds very technical. In fact, all we're going to do is just group some ideas together and place them in a way which is easy to remember. We call it an equation, but it's not really. But let's say we have a variable p, and this variable is programmed knowledge. Now programmed knowledge is expert knowledge. It's knowledge in books. What we do because that's the way it has always been done. So this is what's sometimes referred to as received knowledge. This is programmed knowledge. This is part of our skill set as people. It's what we learn at school. It's what we've learned through observation, from living in a society, from living within families, and from work, and from all the experiences that we've had, social, sporting, and so on. And all of this is what makes us up as people, or partly at least makes us up as people. Genetics being the other part, and the debate between which one predominates is ongoing. So we're not going to engage in that, but what we are going to talk about is this idea of programmed knowledge. It's the knowledge that we receive, and the knowledge therefore we capture, and it colours the way we see problems. It colours the way we go about solving problems. Some of us may go about solving problems quickly and quite rashly, and others will be more circumspect and stand back and think about it. Some of us will reach for textbooks and ideas we've encountered in the past and try to work out solutions. But action learning is about learning about now, learning about the problem as it exists now. And sometimes the problems we confront in our immediate lives are new problems. These are ones which there's no obvious solution in the textbooks. Sometimes we have to think about the problem, and the problem may be one based on the structure of the organization within which we find ourselves, or on the constraints of production, or constraints of marketing, or the constraints that the management have laid down, that certain processes should precede other processes, or whatever. So sometimes the programmed knowledge that we take with us is helpful, but it's not all we need. What we need is to acquire knowledge of the problem in front of us. Sometimes we need to question. All aspects of our previous experience. We need to be critical about our previous experience and its usefulness, but we also need to question the problems that are confronting us right now. We need to be able to structure the questions so as to shed light on the problem, which will hopefully give us a modus operandi, will give us a way of moving forward. It will give us an insight into what is required. Experience is useful and relevant, but we also need to question, based on our experience, based on what we know and the knowledge we're carrying with us. We need to question constructively to try and get an insight into the problem. The problem we're dealing with is in the here and now. It's a real problem confronting us now. So reference to the textbooks and reference to received knowledge is not necessarily going to solve the problem now. Perhaps the problem that we're confronting right now is unique. It's unique in the sense that it is idiosyncratic to the organization in which it's based. It's based around management policy, it's based around the product, it's based around the process, and there may not be a solution in the texts. So therefore, working with colleagues in a group situation, there is learning to be had here and now by dealing with this existing problem. And then, having learned from it, reflect, think back, and capture that knowledge so that if the problem arises again in the future, this particular scenario, this particular situation can be dealt with more efficiently. So on the slide in front of us at the moment, we've got what we call here two variables, but they're just two ways of looking at these situations. We have programmed knowledge, which we take in, and we have this ability to question what's gone wrong now, why is it malfunctioning, what's the issue, what's the problem, and getting constructive questions which will help us shed light on the problem. And then we've L for learning, and learning is the result of combining the previous two. So L is the combination of the previous two. So we could say that programmed knowledge plus questioning equals learning. So we have programmed knowledge, received knowledge, we have expert opinion, we have the ability to deal with problems here and now, the action learning part, which is dealing with the situation right now, partly related to what we know and what we understand, working in a group, trying to figure out what the solution is. So that's the P. And the questioning is trying to find out what exactly the problem is so that a precise solution can be derived. And when we put those two together, we get the learning. In fact, we could go a little further on this and say, well, the learning really comes about having reflected, which will be the stage after the problem has been solved. When the problem has been solved, the actual real problem, the action learning problem that confronted us, when that's been resolved, we should go away and reflect, even discuss with colleagues about what happened, how the solution came about, what was the solution, why did the solution work, why wasn't the solution spotted earlier, why did it take so long. These are the sort of questions that need to be asked. And what we've got then is, out of this, is this idea of learning through reflection, but learning having solved a real live problem, a problem which is action learning. It's here and now, as I said earlier. And that's our so-called equation. It's not really an equation as such, it's more a way of classifying the two to give us the learning outcome. But bear in mind, we should have reflection in here as well, which would further refine this idea. But it simply gives us what the basis of action learning is. And that's all this very short class was meant to do. It gives us that extra dimension, the extra insight into action learning. So that's all we're going to deal with. I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.